Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Herbal Mana Podcast, where we dive into all things wellness, in particular, based on our little tagline for Herbal Mana, things that help us hurt less and live more. Today, we've got an interesting guest. He's got a lot of cool stuff going on. You can check out his website, his social media presence, some pretty cool stuff. We have Dr. Brad Walters, chiropractor from North Carolina, but originally Omaha, Nebraska, right? Okay. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. This is kind of cool. Coolest tagline I think I've ever seen in LinkedIn for a doc. Faith, health, freedom, stakes. Love that. So why the stakes? Why is that part of your tagline for LinkedIn?
I'm currently living a carnivore way of life as far as food goes.
So it's not just because you're Omaha and Omaha steaks and
I imagine it's probably comes a little bit from that being raised in Omaha, right in the capital of beef country, so to speak. But no, definitely it's been a journey. All things wellness, especially as a non-traditional doctor, has been away from the allopathic model. You really begin to see nutrition, and I've seen that through just the evolution of my journey. How it begins a lot of the same way. Um, we've seen the culture shift, vegetables and all of that, and diving deeper into seeing how they're all produced. They're just not the best thing for the human body anymore. With all the genetic modification and all of this. So I've been doing a lot of research on this, and carnivore has been the way to go. Definitely, not only for my personal life, but clinically too, and the people that I've been able to help through the carnivore lifestyle. It's been life changing.
it has been interesting to see the shift. We're seeing it somewhat culturally. Of course, there's
Yes.
some of us who never did move away from our homegrown beef. I grew up on a ranch, hobby ranch, but still a ranch. We raised registered Hereford cattle. And if I ever moved away from eating beef, I think I might get disinherited, disowned, and maybe worse.
Yeah. But at least it's not bad for you, right? It's good and healthy anyway.
I know it's good. Yeah. 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 In fact, we found that all that other stuff being pushed on us was not so good. All of those
Yeah.
fancy seed oils and other things that really are not good for the body.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's fascinating times that we're living in, really. I mean,
Heavens.
there's been so many just about faces in our culture, speaking of nutrition, we're living in one of those dots in the timeline of the history of the world and seeing the radical shift. Like we're living in that moment right now where that shift is happening. It's just fascinating.
Fascinating, among other things, is to see how the battle is lining up. I saw an interesting clip and I had to go verify this because I saw it in social media. Then I wanted to go see if it was real. And by golly, this is real. In the state of Texas, they have the legislation to cut junk food out of the food assistance, out of their CHIPS program and Medicaid program. And there was one major organization that testified against the bill. And this is a bill to take sugary sodas, candy bars, chips, and crap out of what's being provided to folks that need the food assistance. And the one big organization that testified in opposition, the American Heart Association. Yeah, wow. Then if you look a little deeper at the American Heart Association, they've got different tiers of sponsorship, and right up their top tier, PepsiCo, General Foods,
Yeah.
American Heart Association. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. And I'm glad that you discovered it and that it's being talked about right now, because the more that people realize what's truly going on, that's just going to further the advancement of right living, you know, at least the opportunity for right living under such an umbrella of propaganda, manipulation of research and all of this throughout the years. And that's kind of what's led me, what I was ranting about earlier, to this carnivore way of life, was diving in and seeing the evidence for yourself. There's so much more power in that. It's one reason why there's so many struggling and lacking, because to find what true health is, what reality is as far as true health, and with all the different messages out there, it's just so important that people become empowered, do research themselves so that they can be confident in the decisions they make. That's kind of my mission in present day right now, is simplifying the complex for people. Because once you begin to see things through more lacking in the term here, um, a clear lens, the truth, people will begin to see that confidence and then everything else begins to open up too. Because now we have a logic, now we have a foundation that we can start on and apply in every situation. It just depends on
Yeah, especially if you can get your patients to partake regularly of that available knowledge. Now, this is part of the challenge. There's a
that.
misconception a lot of people have. My back hurts, I'll see my chiropractor. So it's very situational. That's not a very good way to use your chiropractor.
This
There's
is true.
so much more that can be going on, so many more benefits. So how do you get people to partake more regularly instead of just showing up very occasionally when they've got that creaky back?
Yeah. It comes in the way I present my business to the community. My business is set up as a membership system, so it's community based in the beginning. So it's pretty remarkable.
Really caught my attention. We were first starting to look into your practice before reaching out.
Yeah.
That membership things. Yeah. So keep going on the membership thing. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And that actually has allowed me to present chiropractic the way that it was actually intended to be utilized from the beginning. Back in the 1895 was when chiropractic was discovered. And through the course of them figuring out what is actually happening with the chiropractic adjustment, chiropractic is truly meant to enhance the body, not just help it when it's in a crisis. A lot like fits in the same toolbox as exercise and nutrition. We want to exercise on a good get a good regular habit of exercising so that our body is fit and healthy. So visiting your chiropractor is much the same, because if your spine is not in its proper position, that's causing a lot of issues that we're not even aware of with our senses. There's a lot of discoordination that begins to happen when your spine can't move the way that it's designed to move. And with that discoordination comes increased stress, and then ultimately, your body ends up expressing a symptom, whether that's pain of some sort, right? It could just be a little inflammation. It could be uh, fail check, as I like to say, within the system, where you get just a whole spasming. The problem began much earlier than that, you know. And that's the truth with anything. Even when you're talking heart disease, when you're talking cancer, oftentimes the first symptom of heart disease is the actual heart attack, right? But we know that had been building for some time before we actually to experience that first symptom, which some people don't actually have the opportunity to see past that, because it may be serious enough that they pass away. But consuming chiropractic, getting consistent with it, you really begin to see a lot of these pain patterns throughout life change. Sometimes chronic pain, it's coming in seasons, so to speak. It becomes repetitious in our life, like, oh, my back went out again, my back went out again. And you can look and explore the environment around you and kind of audit the stress that you're going through. And if your body's not able to adapt fully to that stress that's going on in your environment, it's oftentimes going to be expressed through a weak spot in the system, right? And so now we have a symptom showing the problem existed way before then. And people need to have that opportunity to be able to get checked for some mutations, those misalignments in your spine, so that their body can just have the opportunity to present the best foot forward in the day that they're tackling, right? So it's really about doing the best. You want to get the most out of your life, come and get checked. Functioning better, just from a movement standpoint, that has neurological implications, impacts all systems of the body, right? Cardiovascular, endocrine function, gut health, so many things. So it's just,
But that the complaint I sometimes hear is that costs money.
yeah, right. Well, that's where the membership model comes in, because it becomes affordable so that you can get checked on a weekly basis.
I think it's awesome
Yeah.
because it's going to be a lot cheaper than being sick if you can do the maintenance and spend on some wellness. I think it's going to be so much less expensive than waiting to spend on catastrophic illness, catastrophic sickness, the heart attack, the
Yeah,
massive episodes that could be avoided. Then we're talking real expense.
that's right.
I would much rather
Look at
pay.
the cost. Look at the cost we pay for crisis care, right?
Yeah,
I mean, man, it's crazy that and they call it health insurance. It's not really doing anything to keep you healthy. It's really only there if you have a crisis, when the profits are substantial enough for them to intervene. And until then, you're okay, right? That's kind of this voice that people hear with today in America. Healthcare system. It's a system, and people think people are trying to utilize that to manage their health, and it just doesn't work, right? So health insurance is what we do as well as natural providers is we want to educate and instruct our communities on what is a better way of living, right? And whatever that is for each individual too. So, in carnivore, that's not something that I would prescribe to everybody, right? It really is based on a lot of things. The individual, what they're willing to, you know, what they're willing to put in. And also some people just aren't built potentially uh, to do that. So there's other ways that you can impact metabolic health than just. But it's a really good way.
fatty red meat is pretty darn tasty, especially if you like barbecuing and you're willing to put in the work for that fatty red meat,
That's right.
which I am. We've got a barbecue or a smoker and some other things, a sous vide to make it all worthwhile.
Yeah,
And yeah, health wise, it makes a heck of a difference besides tasting.
that's right.
No doubt about that. I have some
Yeah,
friends who tried the vegan approach to living. It's tough.
it
Health is,
is. I tell you, I tried it for 2 months.
how was it?
It was challenging, you know, and there wasn't really a fullness, always feeling like I could be eating, which just makes sense because you pretty much have to.
Low caloric density, low nutritional density.
Yeah, plus bioavailability of nutrients, your body's got to do a lot of work, so you need to make calories. Yeah, you got to provide that.
Yeah. Naturopath in Cheyenne, Wyoming, a guy named Dr. Dan Young, and fabulous, fabulous. He teaches other naturopaths how to run their practices. He's just a great teacher. He said there's one non-negotiable when a new patient comes in, if they're having dietary issues, digestive issues, whatever, if they are vegan and won't allow the introduction of animal proteins, he said he can't work with them. He really can't do enough to help them, which is pretty interesting. That's a pretty stout statement.
Yes, but true. I mean, design to be great. And man, it's to try to get all the nutrients your body needs. It's just you really gotta know what you're doing. I mean, I don't think it's possible. It's not possible.
Even if it was possible, the sheer volume, I don't think is manageable.
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, I saw on your website you do a lot of work with athletes and athletic performance.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you do?
We have some technology in the office called SoftWave Tissue Regeneration Therapy.
That's what I want to hear about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very
How does
interesting.
that thing work?
It's exciting. So the technology was originally introduced in the US back in the early 70s.
Wow.
You've heard of lithotripsy. It makes sense? It makes sense, everyone?
Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
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 Lithotripsy. This is the same technology. It's extracorpuscular shockwave therapy. So what it is it's a sound wave that is propelled into the body, traveling at 4 times the speed of sound. So this is the unique stuff. Okay. So behind the sound wave, there's water and there's a little spark gap, little metal piece that produces a spark, and that spark in the fluid propels this sound wave out of the applicator through ultrasound gel, the medium, into the body at 4 times the speed of sound. So it's got some high velocity behind it, right? And as that wave is entering into a joint that we're treating, number one, it's going to force out fluid inflammation with that fluid. gets forced out of the joint. We have immediate decrease in pressure, so we have an immediate increase in ability of the joint. But what's fascinating is what this weight is doing cellularly. And it causes such a fast compression of the cell as that cell's coming out of its compressive state, it releases these chemicals that cause enzyme enos is released, nitric oxide synthase, to dilate the blood vessels, the little microcapillaries in the area for increased blood flow. And then there's also another that is released called DETF, which sustained new arterial flow to the area. So now we're talking advanced future care from your body, right? Laying down new vessels for sustained blood flow nutrients to the area. And also some of these chemicals get leached into the bloodstream and cause your brain to release stem cells to migrate to the area. So now you have your body releasing the natural stem cells that you're born with into the system to migrate to the area of treatment to create new living healthy tissue, which takes about 2 to 3 months. So we're heavily impacting pain from day one by the removal of inflammation. And then it's a whole modulator of the inflammatory cascade. So this is where SoftWave directly opposes steroid injections for joints. Okay, so you get a cortisone injection from your doctor. They say, wait a couple weeks, see what happens. It should last you, 6 months or so. That's usually the routine when you're getting those chronic injections. And it may be helping you with your pain, but it's definitely doing disruption to the joint in turn, right? I've seen
Dig into
so
that.
many.
Cortisone injections are awesome. I've had some over the years. I've had 20 orthopedic surgeries, unfortunately.
Okay.
So,
They,
and I've
they
had
are, and
good things
there's
and
a
bad,
time and place.
good things and bad things. Now, the cortisone injections. Why can't I get just a perpetual series of cortisone injections? They feel awesome. What's the downside? What
Yeah.
happens to the tissue?
Yeah, there's a hardening and weakening of the connective tissue. So your tendons, ligaments, they're going to lose their integrity over time. And that's why usually somebody who's getting chronic cortisone injections is going to have some major joint problems later on, right? And of course, these injections did what they were supposed to do when they were first introduced within our nation, treating athletes, right? These were all performance that, hey, you're getting paid big dollars to throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. You got some shoulder pain, let's give you a cortisone injection and get you back out there, right? And you win games. It's not good for the everyday, right? Because it ends up impacting our daily lives at such a great cost. A cost that we're not really being paid for like an athlete. So the SoftWave technology, the electrical shockwave therapy, directly opposes steroid injections because steroids shut off inflammation. This technology is a modulator, so it's resetting the process. It's like taking a snowplow, clearing out the driveway, and then let's see what happens. It's still cloudy, so we're going to get some collection of inflammation again, right? And you run another series, and you release about 4 to 6 sessions. If you're treating like a chronic knee, for example, I mean, it's pretty fascinating the change and results that we've seen with a gentleman who was scheduled for a hip replacement, a total hip replacement. He wasn't even through the whole series. He only had 3 treatments. He called and canceled the hip replacement procedure. This was a year and a half ago. I just called him yesterday, following up just to see how he's doing. He's still out. He's a contractor. He's still out laboring, doing all these things, living his life with both of his hips. Isn't that fascinating?
One thing some of the folks watching this may not understand, if you haven't seen connective tissue, you might not get how cool this is. I've seen films of quite a few of my surgeries. And while the surgery is going, you can see inside, and I can see the cartilage, and it's pretty much milky white. I can see my tendons, mostly milky white. I can see my ligaments, almost milky white. And it looks good. It looks nice, clean, sterile. But there's a downside because it's milky white. There's not a lot of blood flow. There's not a lot of nutrition coming into that tissue. How does the soft wave Why does it make such a difference? You mentioned vasodilation and arterial pathway.
Vasodilation, VEGF is VEGF actually causes. So you're right about the connective tissue and how wide it is. Much of what it's getting, it's nutrients from the synovial fluid in the joint, right? The synovial fluid is getting its nutrients. Everything, most nutrients is all coming from blood, right? Especially when you're talking metabolic tissues. So we're talking about muscles, tendons, ligaments. Yes, they don't have a very rich blood supply, but that's why it's important that that blood supply that it does has the integrity that it needs so that it can be nourished, right? And then there's the nutrients within the synovial fluid and all of that, and the health of that's going to be determined a lot by what you're putting in your body, the nutrients that you're eating and all that. That's where that's going to come from. But yes, it's truly fascinating. So yeah,
As far as the nutrition side, when you're working with somebody that's going to do the SoftWave, do you coach them on nutrition as part of the process? Do you
absolutely.
query them? What do you find? What are common bad habits, and what are things you need to have people change typically?
Yeah, I really start just simple and hey, just try to avoid the foods and boxes, bags, and barcodes. Stick with eating
Boxes,
foods.
bags.
Yeah. Boxes, bags, and barcodes. Drink water. You know, that's the best way for you to maximize the results that you're getting. That's the truth in anybody's situation. The more that we can provide good quality nutrients, you're going to be better, right? Because you are what you eat.
You think so, but you wouldn't think that if you looked at the food industry and mainstream medical, because we've got mainstream medical, the allopathic folks, who don't pay any attention to nutrition, and the food industry that doesn't pay any nutrition or any attention at all to health. So we've got these two massive industries that don't have our best interest at heart. And a lot of folks just don't know. When they go shopping, they go to the center section of the store for the bulk of their calories. That's where they get the what boxes.
Boxes, bags, and
Art.
barcodes.
That's the center section. I go to my local store. I've got a store just hundreds of yards away, and I'll spend 99% of my time on the outer fringe because it's that core of the store that makes up most of the store that has those barcodes, boxes, the beds, and a lot of things I can't even pronounce. And what's interesting is how many things are hidden too. I've noticed of late, for instance, that canola oil isn't always canola oil. I don't know why, but now it's starting to show up as rapeseed oil, as though that's an improvement. I don't know that that's an improvement in packaging or labeling, but I'm
Yeah,
starting.
well, what is Canadian? Isn't it Canadian oil something?
Rapeseed. It's just
It
the
is
form.
rapeseed. It's made from rapeseed, and they're probably labeling it that to get it
Well, not
wrong.
grapeseed.
No,
Rape,
rapeseed. Yeah.
rapeseed. That's just canola. Rapeseed oil is canola oil. But I'm starting to see that used in lieu of canola oil. They're both bad. They're both the same thing. If I have to pick, I'll pick the canola over rape. But anyway, the packaging is interesting because you can go look at those boxes, and I'm fairly literate in nutrition. I study pretty hard. I'm not a doctor. In fact, my background is in law, a little bit different, but I can read a label pretty well. But I still find things in the packaging I've never heard of. And I'm finding that pretty routinely.
Yeah, there are some resources out there. I know I have like you can get an app that has a barcode scanner
Mm-hmm.
where you can
Is that the
scan a
yucca?
barcode of an item and it'll let you know, like, hey, what is the toxicity of this food that I'm potentially selecting for myself, and give you kind of a measurement of toxins and things that are in that and things like that. So there are some good resources for people who may not be in the know or feel overwhelmed in that regard. You can research and there's
I've
plenty
got
out
a
there.
little app. It's called Yucca or Yucca.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
call it.
that's the one that I use.
Hey, YUKA. There's a free version, paid version. The free version gets just about anything anybody needs. You get a quick rating. So if you folks look it up, you can find it on the Android store, the Play Store, or you can find it on the Apple App Store, YUKA. And for us lay people who are not doctors, it does give a pretty good breakdown. Another one I came across recently was Seed Oil Scout that helps you find restaurants that don't use seed oils. Now, it's a little tricky because there aren't many. There
Everyone
aren't
knows that.
avoid the seed oils. It's a pretty scarce list, and they're all somewhat eclectic. I hope that changes. I know Steak and Shake, I think it was changed. They changed to beef tallow. Nice improvement.
Cooking beef tallow, but I think part of the storage of the fries might still have some seed oils.
Kinds of other stuff going on.
Yeah,
They've taken care
but
of
at least
one.
they're cooking it in the. Yeah.
So it's an improvement.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to be pretty careful. I can't really eat much at Chick-fil-A. Much on
I have this thing called the Chick-fil-A Paradox.
Chick-fil-A Paradox.
Yeah,
Let's hear it. What's the Chick-fil-A Paradox?
you know, I love their cultural message. Right? A wholesome, good Christian organization. However, there's the flip side of that. They're causing a lot. Their food is causing a lot of the chronic disease that we see in our world today. So that's the Chick-fil-A Paradox. It's, okay, there's this, but there's this. Both are significant.
Yeah, they do have a heck of a model. Very successful. I like the values. I love the service. But you're right. It's a disaster. I was looking at McDonald's French fries recently. By the way, they were invented in Idaho. That's where I live, Boise, Idaho. And if J.R. Simplot had the original contract to supply the French fries worldwide for McDonald's. Back in the day, McDonald's French fries were potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. That was it. That was your McDonald's French fries. Now you've got about 15 ingredients, all sorts of chemicals, all sorts of preservatives. I saw a pretty cool photo of the last burger sold in Iceland before they shut down their last McDonald's. And this was at the 10-year mark. They've had it encased in glass, not refrigerated, some fries and a burger. And they didn't look awesome, but they didn't look much different from when they came off the assembly line 10 years later. Because of all the preservatives. Yeah.
It's crazy. If you were to put that outside, probably too, there would be no bugs coming to it to eat it.
No.
I did a little test for myself once with margarine and butter outside. Take a thing of margarine and place a little plate on the sidewalk, and take just a little tablespoon of butter, place on a little plate on the sidewalk around some ants. And the ants didn't go to the margarine, but they went to the butter. It was pretty interesting.
It's also interesting that butter has come full circle. When I was a kid, butter was good. And then 30 years, butter was bad. And there was a real push to have the hydrogenated vegetable oils and margarine. Mm-hmm. And now butter's making a comeback because we know it works.
It works.
Saturated fat can be okay. And cholesterol is essential for bodily functions like creating hormones and brain function. Interesting to see that we're finally seeing some non-traditional sources of information that are getting the real message out.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Really interesting.
And thank you for being a voice.
What's that?
Thank you for being a part of it and being a voice.
Yeah. Well, it's important. It's going to be interesting to see what Bobby Kennedy can get done. I don't know how much he can get done with Big Pharma, but I've got real hopes on transparency and food labeling. It's marked pretty well in a month. I don't know what he can get done in the next 47 months, but I'm really hopeful. Really hope. I just want a good, clean food supply.
Yeah, I think back in a lot of what he's going to do is going to come through research. And so,
no, that's what's disturbing them, though. They don't want to hear the.
That's how you're really going to begin to impact Big Pharma. A lot of these groups from Big Pharma, if they shut out enough money, they can get fast tracked on the premium process. You're just merely slowing that down.
One of the sad things with the FDA, that fast track process, that is not an FDA team of scientists. That's the food manufacturer and their group of scientists doing their fast tracking, and then they submit their report. It's not an independent FDA panel doing the review.
Right.
It's the company itself using the company's own experts, the company's own consultants, come up with the company's own conclusions. That is not a way to regulate a food supply. That's a sell. It's a complete sellout. So it's going to be interesting.
The good news is that at least it's known. Because if it's known, we know that sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? So there could be something done about it. And as you said earlier, we're hopeful for Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
Truly, I mean, I think he's the best person for the job right now.
I think so.
Absolutely.
And as far as facts, something that's readily available, but not talked about enough is PubMed. To find good quality, peer-reviewed research studies with nice little summaries and abstracts, even some of us non-medical folks can understand. I am looking at PubMed every week. If I need to know a pretty good source for information, I go to PubMed. If it's peer-reviewed, I've got some faith. I run into people all the time that go to WebMD, on the other hand. And I tell my folks, don't even think about going to WebMD. It's not peer reviewed and it's financed by the pharmaceutical industry. You have to read the fine print disclosures. Maybe only those of us with a legal background get interested in this, but if you dive in, you find nearly all the funding for WebMD comes from Big Pharma. Most of the articles submitted, Big Pharma, which is interesting. They do a heck of a job. That is well marketed. Unfortunately, they're marketing the wrong stuff. And I can find something natural, well, like frankincense. I think frankincense is awesome. It's got a lot of nice uses. I can go to PubMed and find hundreds of research studies, peer-reviewed, showing various benefits from frankincense. I go to WebMD and I can find that frankincense has a nice earthy smell. It's great for incense. It's kind of a nice smelly thing. And that's it. That's all it's good for on WebMD. But in PubMed, where it's actually studied, peer-reviewed, put through clinical analysis, it's got all kinds of interesting properties, useful therapeutic properties. Just interesting to see. Really.
So that's a great that's a great visual just with those two things with identity and yeah.
When somebody comes into your clinic, what does it take to get them to understand the monthly subscription is a good thing? Are they open generally? Does it take a sales job? What does it take?
Um, once they once we walk them through the orientation, and they begin to see chiropractic's meant to be utilized this way, which is weekly, getting checked once a week for the rest of your life, not because you get this problem, but because you want most of your body. Right now, I need to see it for three times a week. I need to see it 12 times. It's 1 month. Yeah, and most people are hurting and suffering by that. Just walking them through the process, sharing with them what's happening, right? During the process, hey, look, your body's moving in a better, more coordinated fashion. Do you see how this is beginning to open up and not be so tight? And how's your pain level, right? I don't really focus too much on the pain because that's one of the last things to show, the first things to go away as far as symptoms go. So, well, let's see. Okay, now we can see the things that you're doing today and how we're reversing that, right? Like we're getting to a much more restful state for you now. So you can better adapt to your environment. And that's what's important. So it's just in the day to day. Yes, just the day to day talking. But you pitch that for 5 to 10 minutes. If that's a sales pitch, I don't know. It's just the trick and it works.
There's pressure selling, and then there's just persuasive information selling, which
Yeah.
I love that side of, if it's called selling. I love informing. I love persuading with good, honest, transparent facts. So if that's selling, yeah, I love selling.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pushing.
I'm not
I'm not.
wired to do the pushy selling.
I'm not a pushy guy.
Yeah.
But if you've got their attention for 5 or 10 minutes, and you just share a little data, you share a little info. My favorite docs are my docs that talk a lot and that just teach. They're coaching me, teaching me, gently informing me. And I love that. I've got a naturopath I see. I started seeing her, well, it's been quite a few years ago. I get a minimum 30 minutes when I go see her. 30 minutes of her undivided attention so she can evaluate, check. I've got celiac and some other things going on. So there's always something. And she's wonderful. She just talks and talks and talks. And I'm just taking notes, learning, and then I can go home and do what I'm told. If I'm told and given a protocol, I'll follow it. And she's wonderful at that. So
That's
if you're just
awesome.
coaching a little bit as you go with those patients, that's wondrous. I can't
That's
stand a
probably
doctor that does not share
that's
his thoughts.
yeah, that's a great characteristic of what a good doctor would be. Alongside, that's why coaching and leadership, you can really begin to see these qualities arise in a good, and this is true for even any professional. You said your background's in law. Relationship capital is huge, and it's easy to get lost in the digital exchange of life today, like we're doing right now. So, I mean, that's cool, and we're still building that relationship capital physically in person. It's easy to get lost in the digital stuff. Like it's easy to just get caught up with the scrolls and all this, and everything's broken up, and we're learning on a machine now instead of like in person as well. Uh, just that we're built for that. I mean, that's humanity. Humanity needs we need to have around
Yeah.
to uh,
That
to have
connectivity.
good ones that come around that you know, go well together.
I like it.
So
When somebody comes in for the soft wave, what are they going to experience? What is it like? What do they feel? How do you evaluate?
yeah,
What, how long does it take to make a difference?
15 minutes. The first
15,
visit, yeah, it's about
15
fifteen to
fun-filled
20
minutes.
minutes. Yeah. When they fill out information, we kind of get a good sense of what's going on, and then we'll work up some orthopedics and whatnot to determine best course um, for what we're doing at that first visit. It's called a discovery session. Where you're actually going to get some waves. It's more of a diagnostic application at this point before it's treatment. We need to determine if you're going to be a good fit for it, right? And so we run some waves over the area just like we would during the treatment, but it's more to see where are these pain points at, and does this fit with what we were thinking, or what we discovered through working at some good ortho and some
So
good.
you're running over the affected area.
Yeah,
Can they feel it light up in
yeah,
the
definitely.
areas?
So remember, this is impacting and modulating inflammation. So when this wave is over an inflamed area, it's going to activate those chemicals, right? Those nociceptors. So you're going to feel uncomfortable. It will feel uncomfortable if it's over an area that it can help.
So if I'm running
So
it across
this,
healthy tissue, I don't feel much.
you
Inflamed
feel the
tissue.
impact of the wave, but you won't feel discomfort. Let's say
Okay.
you're over damaged tissue, you would feel the discomfort. And so it is a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but by the time we're even finished with those 500 waves, there's reports of, I would say, 50 to 70 to, in some cases, 90% resolution with their pain that they were in during that stage, during that one session. Yeah, it's remarkable, the change. Yeah.
A lot of folks will the chronic inflammation issue for years without relief.
Yeah. I've seen, you could Google or go check out any videos with SoftWave, and you will see these amazing testimonies of people who have suffered 20 years with this and 20 years with that. And it's cool to see it on video, but when you get to be a part of that amazing journey and part of that catalyst that's changing the trajectory of that person's life, there's nothing, it's just fun. So,
Now, with our company, we do products that are topicals, and we use DMSO, which is dimethyl sulfoxide. Great for penetrating into the tissue. You have to use pharmaceutical grade. It's a vasodilator. It's anti-inflammatory. It's just phenomenal. But it's not as rapid. We can't reach down into the connective tissue like you can do with SoftWave and have that profound an impact that quickly. Now, what we do, well, we get awesome testimonials. but it takes a lot longer to affect tissue the way that we have to go about it, unlike what you're doing, which is fantastic to hear.
It's exciting. I mean, you're seeing just think about 20 years of chronic pain with a 50% reduction in just 15-minute window, and then over the course of 4 to 6 treatments typically. Standard is 8 to 10 treatments is what industry standard is, but I usually can get people to where they need to be within 4 to 6 visits. Each visit just adds on top of each other, right? It's just amplification after each visit. So the suffering diminishes more consistently, and people end up living pain free, which is what's about.
Part of the pushback is that's going to cost money, but look at 6, 8, 10 sessions, whatever that costs versus downtime from a hip replacement. Replacement, by the way, but I've had 2 knee replacements, and I've got some understanding of the downtime and the expense and the doctor visits and the therapy. If I could avoid that with 10 sessions with you, 10, 15, I don't care, 50, it would be less impactful financially, emotionally, spiritually than going through those knee replacements. A lot cheaper to do the prevention and get the healing rather than a joint replacement. Much better way to go.
Absolutely.
As far as diet, do you talk diet with all of your patients?
Yeah. Being that I check a lot of these people on a consistent basis, I can see things, I can feel things, boy, you sure do have a lot of inflammation going on. And it's just more just, introduced that way. It's soft. But yeah, we talk diet. And I don't try to get too pushy with things per se, but to drop little seeds every now and then, eventually my hope is that they would come back and as they're reviewing their day, they remember, Brad told me to avoid boxes, bags, and barcodes.
Yeah. I like that. Folks would be a lot better off if they could do that. Avoid the barcodes, shop the outside, eat just whole food. As long as you can source good foods. I did a little experiment just recently. I bought these really, really nice looking tomatoes. I love tomatoes. These little guys, about this big, and little package. Got them at Albertsons. And I did the same experiment last year. I took that package and I set it on my counter in the kitchen and I waited. It took 5 weeks for them to start to shrivel just a little, but they did not start to break down like a good tomato should do. 5 weeks. And all they showed was a little bit of dehydration. That's problematic when it comes to picking my vegetables and my fruits. If I can't put it on the counter and have it start to consume itself from its own enzymes, then something's wrong with that food. And a tomato, especially a fresh tomato out of the garden, if I grow it myself, well, if my wife grows it, because she's really the gardener, I bring it in, I put it on the counter, and if I forget about it for maybe 3 days, it's gone because it has all the natural enzymes ready to break down that fruit. But if I get one of these Franken fruits, Franken veggies, where they breed out those digestive enzymes, those enzymes in the natural produce, then I'm breeding out the flavor, I'm breeding out the nutrients, I'm breeding out the enzymes. And all I have is a really nice looking piece of fruit or vegetable, but I don't get any content as far as nutrition. That has made it a real challenge to get good food because I can't get it through a normal grocery. For me, I look at that as the Costco effect. Costco wants beautiful, uniform fruits and vegetables. They'll reject anything that's not beautiful. If it's not uniform, they don't want it. But unfortunately, that means growers are pushed hard if they want to fit into the Costco world or Albertsons or Kroger's. They've got to have those beautiful, uniform, shelf-stable fruits and vegetables, which is not necessarily a healthy fruit or vegetable. It makes it a real challenge.
I've been kind of similar with anti-nutrients. If you're familiar with the topic of anti-nutrients, we've been talking about the depletion of nutrients, right?
Yes,
And,
like kale.
picking these crops too early, picking them when they're green, and not allowing them to go their natural progression of becoming ready. It's amazing the intelligence that's within a plant to protect it. These toxins that they'll stay in the plant the whole time if you pick it when it's green, So the anti-nutrient content by the time it becomes ready to eat is higher, like with the oxalates and the phthalates and so on and so forth. So this is why it's important to shop more your farmers markets, because that produce should have been, and you can establish that by asking, right? Building that relationship. Should have been picked when it was ready to be picked and then went to the market, not wait till early while it's still green and then boom, that closes the environment within that produce, whatever that is, right? And now it has to stir up and decide what it can do with it. And you end up getting amplification of those things that wreak havoc within the body. If they're out of balance, bodies do make oxalates and things like that too. When they're out of balance, they're disruptive.
As a kid, we used to get these awesome bananas. You could go to the grocery store, and if the banana was yellow and ripe, you could bring it home, and it's going to still stay yellow and ripe for a few days. It's going to be great, tasty banana. That is not the case these days because bananas typically are picked very green. And then they sprayed when it's time to turn them yellow. They spray with a chemical that will force the ripening of that banana. If I pick up a banana at the local Albertsons and it's just turning yellow, by the time I get home, I may have missed that opportune time for that banana because it's ripening so quickly and it's not going to have a very good nutrient load, nor do I very often get a banana with good flavor. And what's sad is for a long time, I could count on organic bananas, but I cannot find an organic banana that behaves any differently now than a regular banana. If that organic banana is just hitting ripeness on the shelf at the grocery store and I get it home, it's going to behave just like the non-organic. They claim they're not spraying the organics. They put that little tape on the end of the stems of the bananas to supposedly protect it. They ripen the same. They taste the same. They're just as bland. It's a little frustrating trying to find good sources. But like you were saying, shop locally and you're much more likely to get what you need. Locally, in season, from a producer that you actually know, which is a plus. We do the same for milk. We get milk locally so that we can buy raw A2 milk, which I know is heresy among some folks, but that's what I grew up on. And it works for my body if I can get that A2 milk. Not Holstein. I need the brown cows. And it works. I know why, just because of the casein. A lot of us have an intolerance for the protein, not for the sugar. So when I do the A2 milk, I'm in good shape. But if I do good old Holstein milk, not so good. The A1 protein doesn't work so well. Anyway, the shop local, that's interesting, important. How do you find your patients or how do they find you? How does that happen for you?
And for me, I don't, yeah, for the last 2 years, I don't do any, external marketing.
Perfect.
For the office, I dibble dabbled a little bit, a year and a half ago, did about 3 months and decided we're just gonna wait until we find something better. And we've just been going for word of mouth. It's been pretty amazing.
Nice. Well, when you've got an interesting thing like the soft wave, the
Yeah.
nutrition, all that going on, I can see the word of mouth
Yeah.
sharing. And I do love that membership thing. I wish more practices would embrace that. It's a little scary. It's a bit crazy, but
There's freedom in it. There's freedom in it for the patient, the practice owner, and there's also freedom in it as a practitioner. I don't have to worry. There's no worry about what tomorrow is going to bring for me. When you think of business wise, financially, it's just a sustained. It's easy.
like that.
Money
Like
means a lot.
it encourages that relationship to be a little more robust,
Yeah,
permanent. And if the patient is really after wellness, they need that relationship. They need that regularity.
right. And so it's worked. And now I'm starting to do more virtually with helping people with the functional medicine component of things. Sticking with the more of the natural stuff.
That I did not pick up from the website. How does
Yeah,
the
this is
virtual
brand
side of
new.
this work?
What's that?
How does the virtual side work? How do you help folks virtually?
I have like a meeting with you right now, just virtually. Like I do what I can in the office with SoftWave and Chiropractic, building the community, and then virtually I handle all the nutritional counseling and all that stuff. It's on virtual.
How do you know what I need nutritionally? So if we're connecting all the way from the
Lab
US, North
tests,
Carolina, Idaho,
yeah.
labs?
Labs. My foundational lab that I do is just stress and metabolic panel saliva test.
Huh.
Starts there. Yeah.
You've veered way off the course here from what all my MD buddies do. This is it's amazing to me. My MD buddies, they just don't order labs very often, or if they do, they're predisposed. They'll look at me and they'll kind of pre-diagnose and order a narrow panel instead of really looking broadly and then narrowing down to my issue. There is so much good lab work available these days. I'm amazed when practitioners are not using labs for data. I love data. I want info. I like to think I'm fairly intuitive. I'm not that intuitive, but I'm a lot more intuitive when I'm looking at a big old lab report in front of me, a big old diagnostic. I like to be pretty smart-ish. Not like you, but at least I've got data.
Yeah.
And that's cool that you can do that.
So it's a new venture. I've just been plugging away at this. It really is just born out of COVID and all of that. So it's
That
a
is,
new era.
people are a lot more open to the distance medicine, the distance coaching, even the distance Zooms for consultations like this. Some small silver lining. This has been awesome. This has been a lot of fun, Brad. I appreciate your time. This is great. Love your practice. I wish I was in North Carolina. I'd love to get that SoftWave treatment, but this is cool. Anyway, I appreciate your time. All right. Thank you, Brad.